Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Name One Player podcast. I missed you guys. It's been 2 weeks. It's been more than 2 weeks. I missed 2 weeks. So, first off, I'm sorry. I felt like I was on such a good track with these weekly episodes, and I really was, honestly. Like it was going really well. I recorded this episode with our guest Lacey like 3 weeks ago now, I guess. And I had recorded the intro and the conclusion. This is a new intro. I am keeping the original conclusion, and it is kind of funny because in my conclusion, if you listen to the end of the episode, which I highly recommend that you do, but if you do listen, I'll give you a little bit of a teaser. I won't go too much into it, but I just talk about, how I'm gonna relax, how I'm gonna chill out. Just got back from Mexico the day before, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do some laundry, gonna watch some TV. That version of myself did not know what was about to hit her. And it's funny too, because in the conclusion, I talk about how I was feeling better than I had been feeling the previous days. In my original introduction, I talk about how I was in Mexico. I actually posted the last episode with Dakota while I was in Mexico. I was in our Airbnb by the pool, and I was like, you know what? This is a good life. I finished up the last little touches by the pool, posted it by the pool. It was like 25 degrees, and I'm like, this is the life that I want for myself. So it was nice to just live that, honestly. But then I got quite ill in Mexico. And I mean, I was there with a bunch of friends. We were having a good time celebrating our lovely bride to be. Drinks were flowing, I had many strawberry margaritas. Lots of, Mexican food was consumed. I thought maybe it just kind of all caught up to me, and unfortunately for a chunk of the trip I was very sick. And I'm like, okay, that's just what happens. Sometimes you get unlucky on trips and you just get a little bit sick and you move on. Life goes on. And thankfully the flight home was okay. I wasn't too ill during that time. But that was Sunday. Monday started to feel better. Recorded with Lacey, and then Monday night came around and I was in the worst pain I had, honestly, I'm not kidding, ever been in my life. And I'm a very dramatic person. I do exaggerate a lot of things sometimes, but no exaggeration here at all. The worst pain I've ever been in my life. And I'm also not really the type of person who's like, I need to go to the hospital. I needed to go to the hospital. Like, it was crazy. It was crazy. And I'm not going to get too much into my personal medical issues online. But thankfully, I'm okay. I wasn't really okay at that time, but thankfully I had really incredible nurses and doctors to help me out. I was in the hospital for longer than I would have hoped. I was kind of on the line of if I would get surgery or not. I mean, thankfully, it wasn't an emergent enough situation that I needed to get surgery right away, but the waiting was a little bit frustrating. And I joked with some of the doctors. I love Canada. I love our healthcare system. I think it's incredible that I was in the hospital for a week and did not pay a dime. And I'm very grateful for that. However, the United States of America, I don't want that healthcare system. I really don't. Again, I think our healthcare system in Canada is great. And the people who got the surgeries were the people who needed the surgeries in that moment, and I was not one of those people, and I'm completely okay with that. But we did kind of joke that, like, if this was the United States, I would get my surgery that day, essentially. Didn't quite work out that way. Was in the hospital for some time, and it's funny too because I was there and trying to edit the episode, and I got my mom to bring my computer to me, and I was trying to chip away at it, and the internet was just so bad. It was so bad. It was so bad. I was trying to watch, I'm a little bit behind on television, but I was trying to watch White Lotus, and the buffering, that was the ultimate test of my patience, but it's okay. I made it through. It's okay. But I was really torn because I really wanted to get the episode out. I probably could have gotten the episode out, but I've said in the past, I never want to put out an episode that's not perfect. I know episodes aren't going to be perfect. I'm not striving for perfection, but I never want to put out an episode that I've just like thrown together and just tossed out just for the sake of putting out the episode. And that does sometimes get a little bit harder when I've now committed to the weekly episodes, but I still want to stand by that. And I did kind of have to take a step back and be like, no, I've committed to this. But at the same time, I'm literally in the hospital. Like, I'm in the hospital, I'm in a lot of pain, I was heavily medicated, and I was like, you know what? Maybe, maybe we just take a break here. And I posted a TikTok looking back, again, I am not like super needing to look perfect before I post a video. But like that video, I don't know. Like I was not looking my best. And again, I was pretty medicated when I had posted that video. But like everybody was just so kind when I said, hey, I'm in the hospital right now and I just don't think I'm gonna get this episode out this week. You guys are the sweetest people in the whole entire world. Like I just feel so lucky that the people, this community that we've built, it's so positive. It's so positive. It's so caring. It's so kind. Thank you for not being upset about the episode not coming out. Thankfully, I did get out of the hospital, I guess, later that week. I don't know. I was in the hospital for almost a week, and then I posted another TikTok. I looked a little better in that one. I was no longer on drugs in that one. Hospital controlled pharmaceuticals. But I was like, hey guys, you know what? I think I just need to take a little bit more time here. I still had quite a few doctor's appointments and like outpatient stuff that I had to deal with. And again, everybody was so kind and so caring. And I don't really know what I expected because again, I've thankfully only been met with, well, okay, that's not true. There's definitely been some negative people that creep their way in, but majority of the time, the people that I know who are listening to this podcast are just so uplifting and incredible. So I don't really know why I expected anything other than that, but getting that, it was just a nice reminder that you guys are the freaking best and I love you all. Like truly, I love this community. I love every single person who listens, but long story short, I'm okay. I am glad that I took some time. Thank you for your patience while I took some time, but I'm feeling good. I'm feeling better, and we're back to the weekly episodes. And today we have a really great one. I'm really excited for this episode. We have Lacey on today, and she is a lawyer who works in sports. And she came across my TikTok For You page. She was talking about kind of how to get into sports law, what her day as a sports lawyer looks like. And so many people were in her comments and being like, wow, this is so cool. I didn't really realize that you could do this. Like, I always dreamt of being a lawyer, but I've always loved sports. And the fact that you can combine this is really cool. And to be honest, I hadn't really realized that that was a route that you could go down either. It's so amazing connecting with all these incredible women who are working in sports and seeing just how many avenues there are. If there's something that you love to do and you love sports, there's a really, really, really high chance that you're able to combine those two and make a career out of it. So when I saw Lacey on TikTok, I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I absolutely love all the videos that you're posting. Would you like to come on the Name One Player podcast and talk a little bit about how you've gotten to where you are? Thankfully, she said yes, and we had an amazing conversation. I'm so excited to share it with all of you. Lacey gives some incredible advice for anybody who's wanting to break into the sports industry. And it was just so fun chatting with her and getting to know all about her background and how she got to where she is today, a lawyer working within sports. So I think we just hop into it. Usually in my intros, I say, we've got our guest waiting to go because I record the intro before I record with the guest. we Lacey's long gone. Okay, this episode's been long recorded. Okay, so Lacey's not waiting for us anymore. But for the sake of the magic of podcasting, let's just say Lacey is here and ready for us. So let's just hop into it. Let's just hop into the conversation that has been pre-recorded with Lacey. All right, everybody, without further ado, please welcome Lacey. All right, everybody, we have Lacey here with us. Lacey, how are you doing today?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I recorded my intro just a few minutes before you hopped on, and I was just saying I did get back from Mexico late last night. I was on a bachelorette trip, so I've definitely had better Monday mornings, but I'm not working, so that's a big
There you
bonus.
go. I was at a bachelorette party in Mexico last year and it was the time of my life. So
Yeah,
good for
so
you. I
you
hope you
you get
enjoyed.
it. Yeah, amazing, amazing times. So Lacey, I found you on TikTok. I follow tons of incredible women who work in the sports industry, and I saw you posting about being a sports lawyer. So I was so excited that you agreed to come on and share a little bit about how you got to where you are currently. But before we get into all of that, just give me a little background about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I am originally from Cleveland, Ohio. Well, probably about 10 minutes south of Cleveland. So it's called Independence, Ohio. I grew up there. I went to college at Kent State University, where I got my bachelor's in sports administration. So I always kind of knew that I wanted to be on a sports trajectory and work in sports, although I had no real idea what department or where that would lead me. Right after graduating, I spent a gap year working for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And during that time, I decided I wanted to go to law school. So I went to Cleveland State University for law school. And during that time, I did a lot of sports focused internships, which was a little bit different than most of my peers, admittedly. But I got a ton of really great experience while in law school. And ultimately, again, I knew I wanted to stay in the sports track. So, coming out of law school, which I graduated during COVID, so it was kind of a tough time for the job market in sports.
Yeah,
And so, one
definitely.
of the first roles I saw posted was a paralegal for the National Women's Soccer League. I was already admitted to the bar in Ohio, so I was a licensed attorney at that time. So it was a little bit of a step back to take a step forward, and I was able to get that role, and I didn't look back.
I absolutely love that. Well, just how you said, a little bit of a step back to take a step forward. We'll get into your advice for women who want to work in sports, but I feel like I hear that quite a bit. That sometimes, unfortunately, the opportunities in sports there's not as many, and any way that you can get your foot in the door is the best way to do it. So sometimes taking that step back is going to open up so many more doors for you than waiting for where your ultimate end goal is and waiting for that point instead of taking that step back to get that step forward. I really like that. But my next question for you, and you kind of already answered it a little bit with saying that you did your bachelor's degree in a sports related field. How did you know that you wanted to start working in sports? Has that been from a young age, or was it kind of right when you graduated high school?
Yeah, I mean, a weird fact about me is like when I was in the fourth grade, I became the student manager for our football team, our high school football team.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, like I was just obsessed with sports. I played sports, so that part of my heart was always in it. But the second I realized that you could really make a career out of it, and that all the teams you see on TV, all of the college teams, the leagues, like they all have people that actually work for them.
Hmm.
I was very sold. Like I remember my senior year, I did my senior project with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I did a job shadow at the Cleveland Guardians. And so I knew there was a way, and I was super excited to find the sports administration track, and I just sort of ran with it.
That's amazing. Sorry, did you say fourth grade? You were the student manager for the high school team?
Yeah. And looking back before this interview, I was trying to like recall everything I've done, and
Yeah.
literally was 2004 and I was in fourth grade. And I did that for truly. until I graduated high school. So I was with them for like 8 years. I worked for my high
Wow.
school.
I love that. So, yeah, you've definitely been in it for a while then, since fourth grade. I don't know how many people can say that.
Yeah, yeah, it was a fun fact that I don't think I've disclosed before. So
Okay, well, we got the exclusive
yes,
scoop
yes.
here. I absolutely love that. Okay, so yeah, you posted a TikTok kind of saying your sports history, and I know you've touched on that a little bit so far. So starting in fourth grade, you're
Yes.
the sports manager. And then how did you get from there to working with the National Women's Soccer League? What kind of were the steps that got you there?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I did some job shadow type things in high school. One was with the marketing department, and so I had initially thought that maybe that would be the crux of what I'd be interested in. I went to Kent State for undergrad, and during that time, I was actually a recruiting assistant for their football team.
Okay.
So during that, I learned a lot about like NCAA compliance, which I found fascinating. And that's sort of one track that you can go if you're a lawyer in sports. So I learned a lot about that, which was interesting to me. And then, sort of on the side through college, I was a kids clubhouse attendant for the Guardians. So that was like
Oh,
sort of game day operations, I'd
yeah.
say. And I got the experience of what working game days was like. Similarly, I worked for the Cleveland Browns in their team shop as a supervisor. So that was kind of a commercial side of things. And so throughout all of those experiences, going into law school, I knew I wanted to be in pro sports at that time. So
Okay.
before law school, right after undergrad, and I used a connection that I had built from high school from one of those job shadows, and I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, I see you have a general opening for like seasonal assistance coming up, and just so you know, I'm submitting my application." And he did get it into the hands of the right folks, and I got an interview, and it was with the sourcing department at the Cavs.
Okay.
I had no idea what sourcing really was.
Okay.
But I figured I read the job description, and I feel like the job description wasn't very specific either, and it didn't give me a clear idea. But I felt like this is such a great opportunity to be in pro sports full
Hmm.
time and just try my hand at it. Maybe I'll love sourcing. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I did it, and it was just a great experience. And it didn't hurt that it was during the 2016 championship run that the Cavs ended up winning. So it was just an incredible time to be with the team, and it was a great organization, and I loved my time there. My cubicle was actually next to the associate general counsel at the Cavs.
Okay.
And so I got the opportunity to know him and learn about what he did. And that is what encouraged me to apply to law school and sort of
Nice.
really go for it. And all through law school, I worked as a receptionist for the Cavs still. So I sort of kept my foot in the door with them, a legal assistant role. They were looking for a third year law student to come in and help with their legal needs at the team. And I was already there. And so I applied for it, and I was fortunate enough to get it. So that is an extremely long-winded way of saying I knew I wanted to be in pro sports. I I felt just really passionate about it, and through law school I had the opportunity to continue in that lane, and so I was
Hmm.
gave me the experience I needed to apply and be successful in this role.
Yeah, because I guess law school too, when you go, and I'm from Canada, so the laws are different. Like law
Yeah,
school is going to
sure.
look a little bit different from country to country, but law school in general, it's not focused on sports. Like you in your bachelor's degree were zeroed in on sports, and then law, you're opening yourself up to so many different modalities of law or just different subsections of it. So, like you kind of said before, how you were doing sports internships at that time, which was quite different than the rest of your peers in the program. Was there ever any time during your law school program that you thought about shying away from the sports industry?
I think it was tough, right? Because even sports organizations don't always have like legal intern postings. So
True.
I think a lot of the time I was blindly reaching out to people I found on LinkedIn, just being like, hey, I'm really interested in sports law and understanding what it would be like working in pro sports as a lawyer. Any chance you'd be willing to like take on a law student? And I wanted to also get a wide range of experience. So I spent some time in college athletics, so the compliance area as well. And I got those roles by doing just that. Like I reached out to the associate athletic director of compliance at area universities, and one of them took me up on it. And I spent 2 years of my law school career there, interning slash externing in the compliance area. So I didn't wanna shy away from it necessarily, but it definitely, it wasn't the typical summer associate program that
Totally.
other law students were doing.
Totally. Well, kind of like I said before, and you touched on this too. A lot of people just when they watch a sports game with the athletes and the actual game itself, a lot of the time you're not connecting what's going on behind the scenes, what's going on in head office, the hundreds, if not thousands, with some organizations of employees that are there who are just doing so many different things that you just don't even consider in the moment. And law, I feel like for me at least was one of the ones that I was like, whoa, I just didn't consider. Of course, sports teams have lawyers and even athletes will have sometimes their lawyers and like contracts and all that kind of stuff. There's so much that goes into it. And I think women who want to work in sports, a lot of the time they might just think, okay, you have players, you have coaching staff, just really the game day experience, but there's so many opportunities within a team. I loved how you would just email teams who weren't necessarily posting that they were looking for anything in their legal department, but you were just reaching out to them and saying, hey, do you have anything available here? Anything for me to shadow? Anything for me to help with? I think that's so, so, so cool. And something that maybe a lot of people might not think about is that sometimes you gotta create those opportunities for yourself. You just gotta reach out and see what lands.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I think even an informational interview at that time was something I was very interested in because I just knew they might not have availability, but at least if I can sit down and speak with them and allow them to get to know me, if something does open up down the line, maybe they'll think of me and contact me for the
Totally.
opportunity. And that did happen a few times. And it's just, it really is about relationship building. That's just so important.
Amazing. Well, that leads really well into my next question. Do you have any advice for women who want to start working in sports, really sports in general, but also specifically sports law?
Yeah, I think again, relationship building is so important. So to the extent you're a student somewhere that has several pro sports teams or colleges, universities, whatever it is, reaching out to those people in roles that you're really interested in and just learning about what they do day to day. Maybe you wouldn't like it, but you never know until you meet somebody and understand what their actual day to day looks like. I think it's also important to play the long game and see a wider view of the picture. Like I said, I mean, I worked game day staff for the Cleveland Guardians and Cleveland Browns, and sometimes it feels like you're just in the trenches, but ultimately, when I've gotten hired after the fact in different roles, people really liked seeing that on resumes because
Yeah.
it shows the ability to really work hard and that you're consistent and you're dependable, and all those traits are really important no matter what industry you're looking to get into. So,
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. Like you said, playing the long game there. We kind of touched on that before. I think a lot of people have in their mind that they want to, be at the top, work their way up there, but then kind of forget that working your way up there does a lot of the time start with that game day staff that maybe you might be working once a week, that sort of thing, and not necessarily talking with the people who are high up, but working the game day comes with meeting all these other people and who knows, like you said, establishing those connections. The connections will get you so far, and I think that's just such amazing advice.
yeah, that's so important is those relationships that you make along the way. Even potentially using those relationships to say, "Hey, I would really like to meet the the VP of operations and have an informal interview with them just about what they do day to day. Like you use your connections to make those introductions and then you
Hmm.
can maybe have coffee with that person and learn about what they
Totally.
do and down the line they might have an opening. Who knows?
Well,
So,
honestly, even you just saying like maybe because I'm just not even non-confrontational, but maybe I'm just anxious. I don't know, like hear you say like just going up to somebody and like I'd like to get coffee with the VP of operations, please. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, good for you. I respect that
uh,
so much." But like why not? Literally. That's what I do try to tell myself. The worst they can say is no. So it's like,
yeah,
why not? And I can only imagine the amount of respect that does get you from people of just putting yourself out there, having that confidence in yourself and just saying, no, I would like to learn. I would like to gather as much knowledge as I can because I mean, like you said, you knew from grade 4 that this is what you wanted to do. So why not do everything that you can to get you there and just have that confidence in yourself that you will get there, but knowing that you gotta put in that work and put in that effort to make those connections. They oftentimes don't just fall into your lap.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, amazing. Okay, Lacey. So every time I have a guest on here, I always, obviously, the name of this podcast, Name One Player, that kind of stems from the whole men ask women to name one player on the sports teams that you love. And I can imagine also, too, being a woman who works in sports, there's so many incredible opportunities for women in sports now. I think that there's way more women working in sports than there ever were before. And I think it's really awesome a lot of the leagues across the world how much they're doing to try to get more women in the sports workplace and just the appreciation that they're giving towards women. But being a woman who works in sports, being in that male dominated industry, I'm sure you have your fair share of men maybe not considering you on the same playing field or kind of asking you to prove that you know what you're talking about. So do you have any favorite times of being asked to name one player or being asked to prove that you love the sports teams that you love?
Yeah. I think one story that comes to mind is, and it didn't actually occur to me until you were framing up the question here, that I have a really good example. When I
Amazing.
was in my third year of law school, I was co-president of an organization called the Entertainment and Sports Law Association. And so
Okay.
we had a board, but I was the only girl on it at the
Okay.
time. And there was an underclassman who um, held some sort of role. I don't know. He might have even just been a member, but at one point he made a remark that was something to the extent of, "Yeah, I know you want to work in sports, but do you even know who's playing on the roster right now for it was the Cleveland Cavaliers he was referring to." And I was like, yeah, in fact, I do. Like, I know the starting five. Like, I could tell you what their record was, but I want to really stress the fact that I don't feel the need to explain to you anything beyond what you're asking because it is just so unprofessional and
Yeah.
inappropriate. And I hope that you never ask this question to somebody again.
Good for you.
And to the credit of the other men on the board, they similarly looked at him and were like, that is just so crazy that you would ask her that. I really am in awe of you right now. I mean, they totally backed me up and just were it became sort of an inside joke, honestly. Even now, it's like something we laugh about because it was just so crazy. And they'll say, "Do you remember when that kid asked you that in front of everyone?" And I was like, I always am like, yeah. And I similarly am in disbelief. So
That is wild for so many reasons.
yeah,
Um, like I don't even know where to begin, but that's really incredible that the rest of the board there had your back and realized that's just crazy. Like it just they always say the audacity of men. Like it really does make you
it
think
was
like
wild.
what compelled you? Like what gave you the confidence to be like, "Hey, I should definitely say
Say this
this to
on an
this
open
girl
forum.
who I'm
Yeah,
sorry you said you were the co-president as well?"
yeah, yeah.
Crazy. Crazy.
Well, it,
And
it
like
almost makes you wonder, was it building up? Like, was it irking him that much that he felt the need to underscore it in front of everyone. It was
Literally, and that's the
like,
thing that's come up with so many of the women who have answered this question on this podcast is unfortunately a lot of it does just kind of stem from jealousy. A lot of the time that men are asking women these questions, it does kind of, if you look at the subconscious layer here, there these women are in positions that these men have only dreamed about and just can't really wrap their heads around the fact that they're there. But I mean, I don't think that they're going up to people that they've worked with on game day and saying, hey, can you get me a meeting with the VP of operations, please? Maybe if they did, they'd be in your position there. I don't know. But I also loved what you said too about, you don't need to answer him. You don't need to tell him that you're well aware of every single player on the team. You don't need to do that. And it's so frustrating really when you're met with that situation of like being like, do I answer? Like, do I let them know that I absolutely know and probably know more than them? Or do I just let it go and just have them live in their little delusional world? And unfortunately, too, a lot of the time, your opinion, hopefully, it did change his mind and help him realize that that was a completely inappropriate thing, but it also maybe didn't.
I mean, I think to be clear, I think there are probably a lot of really smart people in sports who
Yes,
work for teams and don't know who start. That's not their
totally.
focus.
A
Like
hundred percent.
there's
I love
so
that.
it's not even in the job description that in fact there are probably teams who prefer to not hire fans. So I don't have much sympathy, but it was a case where that happened and I did have to answer to it. So I think most of us have been there as women in sports.
That's hilarious. That's honestly such a good point, though, too. I've actually never even considered that. A lot of the time it could be an asset to not even know much about the team that you're working for. Of course, it's good to, have like pride and know that like kind of
Sure.
team culture.
You're in finance or legal to some extent, or I mean, there's a lot of areas in a business that aren't necessarily front facing, and you wouldn't have the roster floating by your desk every single day.
Totally.
So it just depends.
Totally. Absolutely great story in the sense that that's hilarious, not in the sense that that happened to you, but thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. All right, Lacey. Well, again, I just want to say thank you. I think it's been so great just hearing your point of view here and really just, hearing about the confidence that you've had in yourself. I think all the women who are going to be listening to this who are wanting to work in sports, I think they'll really take away from this that, just get yourself in those opportunities, whatever comes available, and just keep pushing yourself, keep getting in those doors, having those conversations to try to get to where you want to go, and it'll happen if you put the work in. I really appreciate you coming on today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was a blast.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much to Lacey for that amazing conversation. I absolutely love it when I get to interview women who work in sports, who have taken their love of sports and turned it into a career. They get paid from it. Like, literally, what could be better? So, again, Lacey, thank you for coming on and thank you for sharing your advice to anybody who might want to start working in sports and just doesn't really know where to go from here. And I'm so glad that we got the inside scoop on working in sports since fourth grade. How old are you in fourth grade? I don't even know. 10? 11? I don't know. So the fact that you knew what's that TikTok sound from Euphoria, Maddie knew who she was from a very young age. That is Lacey. And I absolutely love it. Yeah, like I said in the intro, I just got back from Mexico. I am so happy for past Nicole for thinking that I'd need to take today off of work, because I did. And now I just have the day to relax, to edit this episode, to unpack. I have to do some laundry, but to be completely honest with all of you, my suitcase is still in my car downstairs in like my parkade because I couldn't be bothered to take it out of my trunk and roll it into the elevator. I just couldn't, okay? Like I said, I wasn't feeling the best and today I am feeling better. So it is time for me to say goodbye, to go downstairs, to get my laundry and put in some laundry. I'm gonna go do that now. But before I do that, I just want to say a huge thank you to every single person for listening. Whether you are a new listener or a returning listener, I hope you enjoyed listening to the episode as much as I enjoyed making the episode. Whatever platform you are listening to, I would really appreciate it if you could rate the episode 5 stars. I would love, but whatever you want to rate the episode, you rate the episode. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But if you could also like the Name One Player podcast, follow the Name One Player podcast, depending on which platform you're listening on. Sometimes gives you a little option to comment on the episode. So yeah, love being able to engage with all of you, read what you're feeling about the episode, hear your thoughts. I love it. Just keep it coming. All right, it is a beautiful day. I probably should get outside for a little bit, but I also saw there's a season 5 of You. I didn't even know. To be fair, it does kind of make sense. I've been seeing Penn Badgley, I think it's Badgley. I've been seeing him all over my social media, and I didn't like clock that it was promo for the new season. It makes sense now. It makes sense now. So that's what I have in store for today. Go downstairs, get my suitcase, unpack, do laundry, edit this episode. I should get groceries at some point, but that can probably wait till tomorrow. And then watch You. I think that sounds great. I think that sounds like an absolutely wonderful afternoon / evening. I hope you're all having as equally as wonderful of an afternoon / evening. Maybe it's morning for you. I don't know. But I hope you're having a great day, and I hope you continue to have an amazing week until you hear from me next. All right, everybody, it's time for me to go. But again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening. Thank you again to Lacey for coming on, and I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week. All right, everybody, take care.